All right, guys, we are back with another day inside the newsroom at Fox 5 Live. I'm here with T, our IT guy, because we were having a little bit of issue, but we're up and running now. So what you're looking at right now in the bottom left of your screen is actually Hollywood, Florida, the nursing home there that's been affected by Irma. There's going to be a press conference on that coming up shortly. But before we do that, let's jump over to the Hill because we have something going on live right now. We're going to try to bring you the most live and breaking stuff that we have going on in DC and across the country as well. So we're going to keep our eye on this feed and then take you over to the Hill where some House Democrats are talking about health care. So for now, we'll go over there, then we'll check in with some weather. We'll get some of our regulars on the show to chat. I see Joe's over here waiting in the wings. So, you know, he'll come on later. All right, guys, so let's go over to the Hill now to catch what's live. More on the healthcare debate right here.
The only reform of an entitlement, major entitlement in the history of the country, and that was welfare. It was aid to families with dependent children, which I was heavily involved in. And the reason I came up with this idea is because it's the same principles, and that is get the money out of Washington, give it to the 50 states, give them the flexibility to design the program, and let them treat the population that the money is designated for in a way that meets the needs of the people sitting across the table from them, not, as Lindsay said, with bureaucracies. It worked in 1996, and we got bipartisan support. Now, I understand that was a different era, and bipartisanship is something that's not in the current lexicon in Washington, D.C. But the idea of compromise and building consensus should be. And that's what this bill does. Ron was right. This bill doesn't repeal everything in Obamacare. And so if you're a purist, you can stand and say, well, everything isn't repealed. Well, let me assure you that in 1996, we didn't repeal everything in welfare. In fact, we spent more money initially than what was being spent on welfare. That's not the case here, but we spent more money and, in fact, targeted for more money for quite some time. And there were a lot of purist conservatives who actually were against welfare reform when we passed it, spoke out against it because it wasn't perfect. It wasn't a good compromise. What this is, what welfare turned out to be, because it's been the most successful reform of a program in the history, it's also been great for the American budget. Anybody know how many times the TANF block grant that was established in 1996 has been increased since 1996? Never. Do you ever hear a governor come to Washington and complain about not having enough money for their welfare program? No, you don't. Why? Because we gave them the money and the flexibility to be able to design a program that worked for them. That's what this bill does. Governors will maybe hem and haw about how much money is in the formula, but we give them the combination of money and flexibility to be able to design something that works best for them. They will save money. They will get better health care for people in their states. And just like we did with welfare, we will get this problem out of Washington, D.C. and have the debate at the local level where it belongs. This is a tremendous opportunity to do something transformational. And I know it may appear last minute, but, well, it is last minute. But it is the right approach at the right time. Welfare reform worked because we were able to balance the interest of making sure that we gave governors enough money and enough flexibility. And for the purists, yeah, it's a lot of money. For the purists, yes, we keep taxes in place. But we get the money out of Washington. We give the governors flexibility. We end, as Lindsay said, any hope of single-payer health care, try to take that money back from the states after it's had it for 10 years. No chance. We are going to have fundamentally the biggest reform that we've seen in my lifetime in Washington, D.C., if this bill passes. And so for anybody who says they're for getting power to the people and for getting power out of Washington, to not enthusiastically embrace this, you have to question whether they really mean what they say, because that's exactly what this bill does.
Question. Right. Senator Graham, you said that there's been a lack of leadership is one of the reasons that you're at this point. Can you talk specifically what you're talking about? And at this point, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell refused to say whether or not he's actually...
Well, we had a good meeting with Mitch. I think Mitch would vote for it, but he said, go get 50 votes. I need 50 votes. We'll bring it up. We'll debate. You got to get a score. We've had the thing at CBO for about a week. I'm asking Mitch to help me get a score from CBO. Make them work overtime. Bernie will not tell you how much his bill cost and how he's going to pay for it. We can tell you exactly what this cost. It's about $1.2 trillion, and we pay for it by leaving taxes on the wealthy in place, something a lot of conservatives don't like, including me, but we took the taxes in Obamacare and basically left them in place, but granted the money so that 4 states wouldn't get 40% and level it out. So I can tell you, unlike Bernie, how we pay for it. Mitch said get 50 votes. If you're a Republican out there disappointed in our efforts to repeal and replace Obamacare, help me get 50 votes. Help us. The president talked to the vice president yesterday. Mike Pence has been awesome. Said he'd give me a statement. I don't have a statement. Mr. President, help us. The president said if you could get 20 governors, he'd stand with them. Help us get 20 governors. The idea that the Republican Party has done its best to repeal and replace Obamacare is a joke. The idea that we can do this by ourselves is unreasonable. We have given a pathway forward that is fair, that fundamentally transforms medicine in the country, gives patients stronger voice, repeals and replaces Obamacare forever, and everybody's telling us, get us 50 votes and we'll help you. So here's my challenge to the Republican leadership. Act like this matters, because it does. I am not ready to move on. Are y'all ready to move on? I'm not ready to move on. If this bill dies, it's because Democrats say no is the only acceptable outcome to me. I don't want this bill to die because we're just tired of dealing with health care. To the president, I am all in for your agenda. Pick up the phone. Call some governors. See if you can get us to 20. Tell them this matters to you, that you weren't kidding about repealing and replacing Obamacare. You actually meant it. So, Mr. President, help us, because we're trying to help you.
Governor Johnson talked about the importance of governors getting behind this. Can you guys each say if your governors support this, if you've spoken to them?
Mine is.
I figured it's me.
It's a, it's a work in progress.
Work in progress.
I have a Democratic governor. We've met. He understands that my concern is the patients of Louisiana. Frankly, I think even the Democratic governors that win, like in Virginia, probably will not come out publicly for it. Even though if you look at the numbers for Virginia, you'd have to ask Governor McAuliffe why he would not. So there may be some partisanship, but it won't be from our side. It'll be from the other.
Here's what I can say. 18 Republican governors gives you a majority of 18 of Republican governors. We'll get there. We just need a little help. We've got about 14 or 15 in the bank. A few phone calls from the president and vice president. You get to 20 pretty quickly. To Senator McConnell, he's supportive of the idea. Help us get a CBO score. Let the conference know we're back in the fight here. We got plenty of time. I don't know what we're going to do between now and September the 30th. But how about this idea? Argue about something that matters to the American people. How about this idea? Don't quit on repealing and replacing Obamacare. Keep fighting to the very last tick of the clock.
Lindsey, can I make a point?
Yeah, yes, you can make all the points you want.
When it comes to different states, obviously non-expansion states like Wisconsin are going to finally get some equity in terms of the distribution of Obamacare dollars. And so, for example, my junior senator, Senator Baldwin, ought to be completely in support of this because this really benefits Wisconsin. There are other senators, for example, Senator McCaskill. Missouri would highly benefit from this. So I think Senator Graham's approach on this thing is, and Senator Cassidy's been, let's make this equal, and there's ought to be a great deal of pressure on Democrat senators as well to do right by their states, starting with Senator Baldwin.
Let's do.
The cost-sharing reduction payments are not included here. The parliamentarian had ruled the cost-sharing reduction payments cannot be included in a reconciliation bill. So what we're doing does not compete with that which is going through HELP. It complements that which is going through HELP. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
One of the criticisms of this effort has been process. And if you guys are successful here, this bill would.
All right, we are on now with Paul Wagner. Paul, can you hear us here? You got us?
I can, Molly.
Awesome. So Paul, we're going to totally switch gears, guys, now and talk to Paul, our reporter who's outside yoga district in Bloomingdale. I actually recognize where you are. This is my old neighborhood, actually, so I'm very familiar. And we're talking about the case from last Christmas when Tricia McCauley was found murdered in a car in the Bloomingdale neighborhood in D.C. And Paul, you have some breaking news for us from this morning.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing you there, Molly, because I'm standing outside the yoga studio where she had worked, and there's construction going on. But
Okay.
what I can tell you is we were in the courtroom this morning when Adrian Johnson pleaded guilty. It was a very matter-of-fact hearing. There was no drama. There was no emotion. Her friends weren't there. Her family was not there. The family of Johnson's was there. They declined to comment when they left. But basically what happened is the judge asked him if he was going to plead guilty. He said that he was, that he wasn't under the influence of any drugs or alcohol, that he knew that if he pled guilty, he had no rights to then follow up. He couldn't appeal or anything like that. He was dressed in an orange jail jumpsuit. He replied yes and no to all questions. And then the prosecutor in the case read what's called the statement of facts and went through what happened to Tricia McCauley on Christmas Day last year. And it's an absolutely horrific case. We still don't know exactly how she encountered this man. We just know that she had gotten into her car to go to a party on Christmas Day, and then suddenly somehow this man encountered her. And again, we just don't know. The prosecutor said he may say how they encountered each other when he is sentenced on November 17th. But what we do know is that it was just an absolutely horrific crime, that he raped her, and then he strangled her with her own scarf. He then pushed her body down into the back of the car, and he covered the body with the backs of the back seat and some other material. And then he drove around the city for a couple of days. And he went into a CVS where he committed a crime. He stole some soap. And then ultimately, after the police were able to determine that he was the suspect, they put his picture out. And then there was a man named Jonathan Paget who spotted the car near DuPont Circle the very next night. And I spoke with Jonathan Paget today, got his reaction to the guilty plea. We'll have that on our shows tonight at 5 and 6. He was walking his dog down on P Street, and he noticed the car, and then he noticed the suspect. And they noticed his photograph because the photograph was put out by the police. So he called the police, and then within minutes, they had Johnson under arrest. So that's generally what happened today, and just sort of the general background of the case.
And if I'm not mistaken, I know she was a local actress. She was involved in the acting community in D.C. And did it take, I forget about this because this was last Christmas, did it take a few days to find her body or even longer?
No, it was very quick. Her body was in her own car. He had killed her and left her body in the back of the car. And when police arrested him, the body was in the back of the car. In fact, he claimed that she had committed suicide at the time. But then they did an autopsy on the body, and they determined she had blunt force trauma, that he had fractured her nose, that he used her own scarf to strangle her, and he raped her. And that in court today, they said his DNA matched the DNA that they took from the body.
Wow.
So,
Hey, Paul, it's Fitz.
yeah, Tommy, let me just tell you that I'm standing on a street with a lot of construction, so I might have a hard time hearing you, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was down at the yoga studio that she was a member of when she was killed, and talked to a lot of her friends. You were, I believe, covering when he initially appeared in court, and he made a lot of just what her friends said were outlandish statements initially as to what their encounter was. What did that do initially to the reaction to this when he said these things that ultimately turned out not to be true?
Right. Yeah. Initially, he told the cops a bunch of lies. He said that he had encountered her, that she wanted to have sex, that they had sex, that she was despondent over something, and she was suicidal, and that she killed herself and actually hung herself inside the car was his claim.
Wow.
you know, an outlandish claim that the police and the medical examiner's office was able to determine was absolutely false very quickly. So, you know, when they did the autopsy, they determined that she had been brutally beaten and brutally raped, and then they connected the dots with his DNA. But yeah, he made all sorts of crazy claims, and none of them turned out to be true.
And she was really a fixture in that community. I know she was working at a community garden. She had a holistic foods business. She was acting. She was involved in yoga. You know, this was somebody who really did make an impact.
Yeah, she was beloved in the community. All of those, Tom. And when I talked to Jonathan Padgett today, he told me that the social media just exploded after she vanished, and that people kept in touch that way and shared constant updates that they had from not only the police but from others, people trying to find her. I was not working that week, but I remember the story very well, because it was just a horrific story, and people were trying to locate her, and then ultimately when they found her body, just another just terrible tragedy with what happened.
And like you said, Paul, there's no real connection that they found between him and Trisha, right? They don't know how they knew each other or what, if there was any connection.
From what we can determine, they were strangers. But again, the prosecutor today, we asked him to talk to us outside the courthouse. He declined, but he said that he would probably be able to say how they encountered each other at the sentencing. So it's the one mystery that hasn't been solved at this point. And that's, you know, it's in the minds of a lot of people, because she drives off to go to a party and suddenly she encounters the devil. And how does that happen?
And a lot of her friends, you know, we asked that question last year to a lot of her friends in that studio that you're standing in front of right now. And I had asked them, you know, was she the kind of person, you know, who would help someone in need? Was she the kind of person who would help someone, you know, or roll down their window to give them $1 or something like that? And to a person, every one of them said absolutely. You know, that she had that kind of heart, that she would try to help people, even if that person maybe did not have good intentions in their own heart.
Yeah, I remember those stories, and it's just one of those cases that just makes you shake your head. And you know, there was another little aspect to this case too, you may recall, in that he was supposed to show up to get an ankle bracelet monitor and be tracked by GPS, and he failed to do it. And I'm going to have to do some research on this before we put the story on the air, but my recollection is that the mayor got involved, and there was some other kind of, I don't know if it was legislation or some kind of ruling that was put into place to try and prevent that from happening again.
Well, Paul, you've had 2 incredible days so far, you know, bringing some resolution to these cases that have been kind of weighing on the minds of, in the case of the Lion Systems, for 4 decades, and in this case for over a year now. So I guess we'll follow up with you at 5 today.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
Yeah, okay, guys. We'll have the story on a little bit later tonight.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, we'll bring it back here in the studio. This is amazing. So it happened last Christmas, so not even a year.
Yeah.
And it was Christmas Day. And I will say I have a very personal connection to this case as well, because one, he was standing. So, in a way, I'm pretty close to the acting community here in DC. A lot of my friends were those people on social media posting about her. So I had indirect connections to her. And then also I'm big in the yoga and fitness community here as well. And I used to live right across from that yoga district. So I know Bloomingdale so well. And when I heard that it was on that street in my pretty much former neighborhood, almost current neighborhood, it's crazy to think this was a random thing.
Had you ever met her? Or
I hadn't. I had sort of a second degree separation from her in that acting world. But so many people were close to her, and like you said, so many good words about her, being a giving person, a loving person, as so many people in that community really are here in Washington. And really sad to see. And I really also hate to see that this was such a random stranger thing that we don't really know. I mean, there's a conclusion, but there's not really a conclusion to me.
All of these cases are tragic and sad when they happen. But the notion that she may have legitimately tried to help this person, and that may have, you know, opened a door to something, as you know, Paul just said, was horrible. just kind of really stop people in their tracks. And you know, when you talked, and I talked to her friends down right where Paul was standing there that day, you know, you could just see, you know, nobody wants that to happen to anybody. But I do remember this, that one woman said, of all of us, how could it be her? Because she was somebody that they all looked to. They wanted to be like her. They wanted to have her energy. They wanted to have her sense of not only self, but community. You know, it's one thing to have a sense of yourself. It's another thing to take that and try to make the world around you a better place. And to a person, everybody we talked to said that's what she was about.
So you covered this story for a few days. You were down there talking to your friends briefly. I remember.
It was, you know, definitely, you know, when this happened, it sent shockwaves through that community, and it still continues now to reverberate with people as they now learn the details of what exactly happened.
Yeah, a couple big cases, like we said, for Paul Wagner closed today and yesterday.
Yeah, the Lion Sister story yesterday.
Yeah, it's fascinating. If you guys missed that, you can check it out on our stream from yesterday in our archives. As you know, if you're joining us on the YouTube channel, welcome. Not sure if we're also on Facebook right now, but Fitz in studio, as usual, doing his thing. Let's talk about Saturday is a big event, and I'm going to promo this out because we're going to be covering this, guys, digitally. So check us out right here. A couple big marches happening on the National Mall.
Yeah, it's going to be busy. Here on It's always
DC,
busy.
it always is.
Busy here. This one's going to be a little bit more interesting than most. Do you know what the Juggaloos are?
Like, I had to. I'm still researching it. I'm going to be
there's a group
up on it.
The group that I've been familiar with from quite some time. Is the Insane Clown Posse, and the Insane Clown Posse, they wear clown makeup. Not unlike I will bring up Kiss.
I was going to say it's comparative to Kiss fans.
Now, I started listening to Kiss in probably 1977.
Okay.
So the idea of people wearing makeup in rock and roll in popular music is not that new. However, Insane Clown Posse, you know, it's a hardcore kind of mix-up of, you know, rock and rap, and it's intense. It's intense, powerful music. Their fans are very socially active, and they too will wear this makeup. They have expressed very strong opposition to what's going on with the Trump administration right now.
This group has follows the okay,
and they are planning on marching on Washington on Saturday.
Okay,
they have a permit. They're permitted to do it. The National Park Service has issued the permit. They're going to be around the Lincoln Memorial. Now, there's been a little discussion. The FBI apparently at one point made some allusions to them being, the fans being a gang. Insane Clown Posse, the musical group, on their own website went out and disputed that. And, you know, Rolling Stone actually has a very interesting article on the fans right now saying, you know, despite our appearance, despite our makeup and everything like that, we are not Antifa, we are not Black Bloc, the left-wing groups that are going out there inciting violence. They said, you know, what they are music fans, and they want to also express their political opinions. But, you know, since the FBI has written this, there are, you know, concerns among some people of the group coming here to Washington and what that is going to mean. This weekend. There's also going to be
subsequently
debates on immigration.
There's
marches on immigration. So it's going to be pretty busy this week.
They're calling it the mother of all rallies or something. Bob was reporting this morning.
Say that
Bob's somewhere in here. Maybe he could
say
chat
that
about
a lot of things.
They're literally it's taking on that name. I'm also seeing Ted Cruz come up. I want to maybe flash to him in a second.
Well, he's been in the news lately.
Big time. I actually wanted to chat about this yesterday.
What's Senator Ted got to say?
Right,
he's talking about taxes?
There he is there. And yeah, it's talking about tax reform. I guess we can check in here for a second.
Let's hear what he has to say,
because
this will be interesting.
He's been big in the news, and we'll talk about that after.
More than 90% of taxpayers seek help preparing their tax returns. For individuals and family, that costs roughly $99 billion a year. In 2016, Americans spent 9 billion hours on their taxes. 9 billion hours is a lot of time. That's more time than some people have in a single day. 9 billion hours wasted, doesn't produce anything. 2.6 billion of those hours on individual income taxes. The average American should be able to fill out their taxes on a postcard like the one you see here and the one you have on your chairs. Simple, easy. Let me tell you the biggest value of a postcard. Physics. The postcard that's on your chairs is this big, not any bigger, which means the next Congress can't come and add a whole bunch of other provisions. It's the simple, now look, I wouldn't put it past them to say, let's print it in 4-point font. So you need a magnifying glass, but the beauty of a postcard is simply the physical limitations of, this is it, no more. You want a powerful legacy. Let me say to President Trump, you want a legacy in tax reform? Throw out the long tax forms we file and replace it with a simple postcard. That's something Americans across this country will remember as a lasting legacy. Third element, immediate expensing. Now, what does expensing mean? Let's hold off 1 second. I'll pull that up in a minute. Right now, under current law, businesses deduct the cost of acquiring capital assets, buildings, heavy equipment, vehicles, renovations over a period of years, complicated depreciation schedules. One of the most important reforms that we ought to include in tax reform is full and immediate expensing. If you spend money on capital, you should expense that immediately. Now, why? What does that mean? Well, there are several benefits to it. Number one, expensing is not agnostic between new dollars and old dollars. Expensing is not agnostic between dollars here in America and dollars abroad. Expensing creates an enormous incentive to invest dollars here in America on American soil that create jobs. We started out at the beginning with the big objective, jobs, growth, wages. If you want to see jobs and growth and wages, you want full expensing. Now, it's a massive simplification of the tax code. Much of the time and expenses is dealt figuring out and dealing with the complicated depreciation schedules. But it also benefits Main Street. You know, I will say in the debates about tax reform, different industries, different sectors have a voice. Many of the voices that are heard in Washington are the voices of the financial services. The financial services world, full expensing is not all that critical. Banks don't tend to deal with a lot of big, heavy equipment and machinery. But I'll tell you who does. Working men and women. The men and women with calluses on their hands. If you're a farmer or a rancher, expensing makes it easier for you to buy that new tractor, to buy that new combine.
All right, so this is Ted Cruz in Washington, D.C.
Didn't talk about his Twitter account. I was kind of hoping he'd talk about his Twitter account.
If you guys were following us, we didn't really talk about this on the show yesterday, but if you have seen in the news...
You didn't talk about this yesterday?
Wait, I'm actually trying to think if we did.
How did you not talk about this yesterday?
I was trying to get someone from the newsroom to talk about it with me, and it didn't work out, so we just glossed over it. But listen, so he was found in a quick screenshot to have liked a hardcore pornography
post. Well, we don't know
post.
he did it,
to
but
his
what
account.
happened was the official Ted Cruz account, you know, you can go to somebody's account and see what they've posted, what they've liked, and
their interactions.
Apparently, one of the videos that were liked by the official Ted Cruz account was some kind of voyeuristic stepmom dirty movie. Is that
sure
a accurate description of it?
It is. And the question was, you know, would he be out in public and talking about it? And Fitz, you just informed me, he said he had some reference to it yesterday.
I informed you of this.
I didn't know this.
He said something along the lines of, wow, with all this attention, maybe we should have done this during the primaries and people would have paid more attention to us, which he might not be wrong about that.
I guess he had to make light of it a little bit. I mean...
Well, you know, the one thing I will tell you about Ted Cruz is Ted Cruz fancies himself as a bit of a comedian. And he does have his own particular sense of humor. Now, some people are immune to his sense of humor, but it's not unusual for him to crack a joke about things.
Yeah.
So they sit, you know, in all seriousness, you know, this was the official Senate account. So they wouldn't really identify who it was in the office. They said it was a staffer. They would not identify the staffer, and they said it was being dealt with internally. So whether that means somebody's been let go or whether somebody's been disciplined.
And maybe we'll find out in coming days.
I will tell you this. If you're reading somebody's Twitter account who's a senator or an actor or an actress or a public official, something like that, it's rare that it's actually them tweeting.
Right.
A lot of times it is staff. A lot of times it is handlers. It is PR people and stuff like that. You know, when you get to be a person of some notoriety, a lot of times the social media, I'm telling you this, you know this.
Yeah, but we're telling them.
Yeah, they're run by somebody else.
Sure. Like we were, do you
You're looking
remember,
at the Great Oz there. You're not looking at the guy behind the curtain.
Such a good analogy. You remember, even when we talked about this, President Trump's, they were saying you could tell if it was actually him or his people with certain clues.
You can tell when it's President
Some
Trump.
people were even saying if you see that it was posted by Android versus iPhone, there's a discrepancy there. So there's ways.
But you see, you know, President Trump gets a lot of criticism, you know, whatever, take what you want from that for his Twitter feed. And some of it is about his spelling. And as somebody who cannot spell, I will tell you, I think that humanizes the president in a way. You know you're not getting, Steve Bannon talked about this the other night, you know you're getting Donald Trump unfiltered, warts and all. So when he does have a misspelling that goes out on Twitter once in a while, a lot of people can relate to that because Twitter does not let you edit things, and also apparently Twitter sometimes will have your staff like dirty movies on your official account, like Ted Cruz wound up in.
And it's kind of juicy. You wonder if someone's going to get let go if there was like a rogue staffer.
You know what?
Or if it was hacked.
On the scale of salacious scandals that we've seen on Capitol Hill over the years,
low.
It's pretty.
You've seen them all.
It's pretty low.
You've seen a lot of stuff.
This is
ping
pong.
Anthony
compared.
Weiner, that sort of stuff.
I
mean, all of that. And there's
what's
a lot.
bigger than that?
That's the one that comes to mind.
No, we've had congressmen, you know, texting pages, and we've had congressmen on Craigslist, and we've had congressmen arrested in, you know, airports, for God's sake. So Ted Cruz staffer liking a dirty movie on Twitter.
I want to see what happens.
It's barely on the scale.
Maybe we can dig and see what it's going to end up being, but let's see what we're getting in next. So we had a shot of Lindsey Graham. They were talking about healthcare stuff on the Hill, but lost that for now. So we're not quite sure what's coming up next. But
well, he might be one of the voices that are, you know, going to be a large, loud voice in what we're going to be talking about today, which is where we go with DACA now.
Yeah, you're looking at this today.
Yeah.
What's new with that today? There's a big meeting.
Well, you know, there was a meeting at the White House with Republican leaders and Democratic leaders, which we have talked about. The realization that the congressional leaders in both parties have come to now is that March is going to get here at some point, meaning when the president announced that they were canceling DACA and it was going to end in March, it was then up to Congress to either pass the DREAM Act or not. And, you know, one of the things about DACA was that it effectively kicked the can down the road to be dealt with later. Well, you know, the can is at the end of the road now, and now it has to be dealt with. And now we know by when it needs to be dealt with, and that's March. So
they're starting this stuff rolling, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
you know, it's broken the logjam and limbo of what has gone on with this. So Speaker of the House Paul Ryan meeting today with, that's the Senate. Speaker of the House Paul Ryan meeting today with Democratic Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. We understand that the Minority Whip, Maryland Congressman Steny Hoyer, is going to be involved in this meeting as well too. Several congressional caucuses will be part of this, and what they are going to try to do is something which for this Congress would be revolutionary, but it's kind of the way Congress was supposed to work the whole way. That both sides would get together, they would agree on the parameters where they agree and they disagree, and they try to come up with a piece of legislation that they could get through both houses of Congress, get through the House, get through the Senate, get it to the president's desk to be signed. Because remember, you know, one of the things the president said after initially making this announcement that DACA was ending, that if Congress does not act, in his words, and he said on Twitter, he would revisit it. Now, the story goes that apparently that tweet was urged upon the president by Nancy Pelosi. That Nancy Pelosi wanted the president to go back out there on Twitter and reiterate the fact that putting the pressure on Congress in that tweet, that if you do not do something, I will do. Now, what is that something? Does it mean they were completely get rid of it forever? Would they come up with something else? You know, it's no secret that the Attorney General Jeff Sessions was no fan of DACA. He thought it was an illegal, unconstitutional, extreme breach of the presidency, and initiated under President Obama. He did not want to see it continue under President Trump. And that's where we're at right now. They've got till March to come up with a solution to this. And, you know, there's been no bipartisan agreement on little else up until now. Yeah, they did pass a resolution yesterday about anti-hate. But on the big, heavy lifting items that this Congress had on its plate in January, they've not been able to clear any of it.
Yeah,
so
healthcare.
If DACA is that thing that finally, you know, we'll see what happens with the tax cut and tax reform. But if DACA is that thing that actually will get both parties to work together on something like that, that could be huge. And that could be huge for these Republicans right now, because as much as their base has been steadily anti-DACA, they're heading into these midterm elections next year, and they need to have something that they've completed. And so far, they've not been able to do that. They've not been able to say that.
Yeah.
So this will, you know, if they can get this going, it would be a step in the direction of them showing that they've been effectively able to run both houses of Congress and get a piece of legislation through onto the president's desk and get it signed.
You are feeling that that's going to happen, or thoughts? No speculation.
No, I mean, I'm out of the business of doing that right now because we've seen how quickly these things can snap apart and fall apart. You know, there are things, you know, to get into the weeds on it a little bit, there's things that get attached to legislation like riders, you know, amendments and things like that can significantly change the direction of what something was intended to be. You know, we see this sometimes on, you know, appropriations for hurricane relief and things like that. People start tacking things onto it, changing it in a way that it was never intended to be. So until we start seeing, you know, this is just talk. We're ways away right now from the point where they're going to
do something.
Yeah, they are just starting to talk. But the mere fact that they are starting to talk is probably a step in the right direction and a step towards some normalcy and that return to regular order that Senator John McCain keeps imploring Congress to do, because that's not what they've been doing up to this point.
Speaking of Senator McCain, I want to say something about that, but quickly, will they meet and then provide some remarks, you think, or will they just sort of have this?
There's a stakeout. We're hoping we're going up there today.
Okay. Sometimes we get those in.
But, you know, from their viewpoint, yeah, the press would like everybody to come out and say everything that they talked about in the room as soon as they talked about it. But if you're negotiating something that may or may not be the best strategy, I'm you know, fairly consistent in the Democratic statements to their supporters lately that they are working on it. But, you know, remember, a lot of the Republicans on the Hill have also opposed what was decided. Paul Ryan, you know, we do know some of the things that they want to negotiate on. Paul Ryan has said that if he is going to negotiate a deal on DACA, a deal on the DREAM Act, that's really where we're going with this. DACA is ending. We're going to be moving now back towards the DREAM Act. That he wants to see tighter border security as part of any new DREAM Act. He wants to see enforcement of current laws. You know, one of the things about the immigration debate is part of it is not a lack of laws. It's a lack of enforcement of the laws we already have. So Ryan wants to strengthen those parts of our immigration law. He wants to put more security into border protection, which he says is, you know, just kind of a piece of Swiss cheese right now in many regards. And then, you know, the conservatives are going to want to, you know, have something for their part in this as well, too. The White House has made it very clear they're dead serious about the border wall. That is something that the president, you know, last month said he theoretically could shut the government down over. Now, that talk has cooled, but the border wall isn't going away as a debating point. So, you know, there's a lot of groups have a lot of different things that they want in this. The Democrats want protection for these undocumented people who are here illegally. The Republican moderates want tighter borders protection. The conservatives want a border wall and a lockdown on immigration. So these competing forces are all going up against each other. Right?
Yeah, and right now you're looking at pictures of the Senate floor. This is a vote on the Senate floor to impose the authorization use of military force today. So that just came up, just so you know what we're looking at.
Well, this grows out of the War Powers Act. We changed the way, 40 years ago after Vietnam, that we, launched military action in this country. And this has been a big struggle between Congress and the executive branch ever since, because of the fact that, we're not in a... Back in World War II, Franklin Delano Roosevelt could just declare war and we would be at war. That's changed radically since the War Powers Act, and Congress now does have a role to play. It's important to remember, we sometimes look at the president, as the boss and Congress as the employees. That's not the way this was set up. We have three equal branches of government in this country. We have the executive, we have the legislative, and we have the judicial branch. They're equals. Nobody's supposed to be over each other. So what they're doing right now is exercising their role as a co-equal branch of government when it comes to authorization of military force.
And this goes right into what I wanted to talk about, Vietnam War and McCain. Did you see, this is kind of off topic, but did you see there was an event last night at the Kennedy Center?
Yeah, I watched it. Actually, Chip Reed
did.
Of CBS News, who's a former WTTG alumni back in the day.
Was there.
Chip moderated the talk.
Ken Burns.
This is not to plug another network's show, but people should watch this.
I really want to see it.
People should watch this. My father was a Vietnam veteran. And this is going to be probably something I think that speaks to a lot of what's going on right now. It's Ken Burns. I think it's an 18-hour documentary on the Vietnam War, which is, I think, going to begin Sunday night. And, one of the things, if you followed Ken, and we've had Ken Burns on Fox 5, recently about the anniversary of Gettysburg. If you follow Ken Burns' work over the years, it's changed as his subject material has now moved closer to our time. So as he's done movies about, say, jazz or baseball, he's been able to have first-person interviews in World War II with people who were actual participants. Obviously, he wasn't able to do that when he did the Civil War. This is going to be remarkable because he is able to now tap into first-person interviews with these people who fought, in the Vietnam War, and also, from what I understand, I haven't seen the film yet, but I've been following it because I'm going to watch it from both sides, and a lot of it has to do with the lesson that we learned in Vietnam was that you don't hold the warrior responsible for the war. And that was one of the big lessons I think the American people learned after Vietnam, that the politics of it may be one thing, but you don't penalize that veteran, that warrior, for going off and doing their service to their country. And the way Vietnam veterans were treated when they returned from Vietnam was not the way we should treat veterans ever again in this country. And, I think you see that now, with the way I saw it right after the Gulf War. I saw it, again now as veterans have returned from Iraq and Afghanistan. That was not the case after Vietnam. And in many respects, some of those men, were injured twice. Once by the physical and emotional wounds that they suffered in that war, and then again when they returned home and really had their backs turned on them by a lot of people who, from some misguided standpoint, blamed them for the Vietnam War. When they were going off to serve their country, many of them against their will, because there was a draft at that time. So.
Yeah, so last night was sort of a promo of this documentary. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was an
I
event.
had a friend that went.
Senator McCain was there.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures.
Senator McCain was a U.S. Navy pilot. People who might not remember this.
Right.
And if not, I would recommend his book.
I have
My
it.
Father's Flag, I believe it's called.
I have a copy, somewhere.
Yeah, and it details the McCain family's history in the United States Navy. Then also, to make it, I guess, a more bipartisan effort, there was former U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry
That's
who
right.
for years served as a senator from Massachusetts, alongside many years with Senator Ted Kennedy. And the thing that Kerry's service in the United States Navy in Vietnam became really kind of thrust him into the public consciousness, because he returned home after leaving the Navy and very strongly got involved in the anti-war movement. In fact, testified before Congress, and his iconic line to Congress was, "Who will be the last to die for a mistake?" And
that was controversial when he was running, right?
Yes, because here you had John Kerry, long hair, his wearing fatigues, saying this into the camera, and it really launched John Kerry into the political consciousness, and ultimately onto the United States Senate, and his career. He was nominated for president.
You forget all these things.
There's something to be said. Had it not been for John Kerry, we might not know who Barack Obama is. Barack Obama, State Senator Barack Obama, delivered the keynote address for John Kerry during his political convention when he was nominated for president. That was Barack Obama's introduction to the world stage. So in much the same way, the anti-war movement introduced the country to John Kerry. John Kerry, in turn, then introduced the country. So it's one of the fascinating things about politics, how intertwined these stories become. But the Vietnam documentary, I think,
so
is going to be
interesting.
something very instructive to a lot of people who probably don't remember Vietnam. I was a child.
You have a direct connection with your.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I was a child. I don't remember.
Right.
I remember the POWs coming home. I do remember that, but I don't really have a hardcore memory of it. So I think it'll be instructive and educational for a lot of people.
Definitely, and kind of all eyes on McCain these days, obviously, with everything that's happened, and I think people are kind of watching what he does and maybe seeing some of the final big moments for him. Obviously, not too morbid,
he's back.
But he is back working.
He's back in the Senate now.
Yeah,
we understand he has undergone an MRI.
Right. Meghan McCain posted about that yesterday.
He did that interview that we talked about, where he said quite bluntly that everybody has an end. And that he wants to see that whatever time he has left, he can do what he does till its fullest. He's been very inspirational to a lot of people who deal with cancers or other kinds of illnesses in their own lives. So to see him back on the floor has been for a lot of people who follow him very uplifting. He had a pretty good line the other day, which showed he's still got his punch.
Humor.
Somebody had asked, I think it was Nancy Cordes, had asked him to respond to Steve Bannon's interview on 60 Minutes the other night, and he looked at her and said, "I'm supposed to reply to Steve Bannon?" And he looked at her and said, "Thank you and good night."
Oh,
and then just smiled with that smile that he has when he's kind of saying that's it, and he walked away. No, it's been very interesting to kind of see how they now move into these different roles.
Yeah, so we have a couple things coming in. Guys, just so you know, you're looking at a shot inside our newsroom on our digital stream, so welcome to YouTube or wherever you are streaming this. Faith's giving us the political daily dish, as usual.
Was that what this
is? Yeah, I'm going to make it a segment.
I don't think you can call it that. There already is a show
I
called
know,
that.
you're right.
They're
I can't TM it.
They're going to sue
I'll think
you.
of something else, and that'll
Do you
be...
have an attorney?
When Ted Cruz is just finishing up, I don't.
They're a lawyer up, because they're going to come after you.
Finishing up there. I think we've said all we said about him. I wonder if he's making a joke right now. Should we check?
Yeah, good work. Thank you so much, Senator. That was a great way to kick off our program this afternoon. And
something tells me he didn't talk about his Twitter.
I don't know. He was laughing at the end. I thought maybe he'd say something. I missed it, though. We'll have to check Twitter for that. So I don't know. But something else. Yeah, so we'll bring it back in here. But you're off to cover some of the DACA stuff today.
Yeah.
And we'll be kind of bouncing around on our feeds, guys, to see what's popping. We might get some weather info in here from Gary.
Is that down on Florida right there?
Yeah, so I'm trying to find out. They just kind of announced it. We're going to look.
Did you watch the telethon last night?
No, but if we can talk about that for a second. I know that was big. Let's check in here to see what's updated.
From what occurred here at this rehabilitation center at Hollywood Hills, our hearts go out to those loved ones of those who are deceased I do want to take this opportunity to announce and alert my fellow mayors across the state governor, and all county administrations to be mindful of the continued hot temperatures in Florida that followed this hurricane, Hurricane Irma. We have temperatures reaching 95 degrees, as you can see as we stand here today, and that means that those homes and business establishments and even critical care facilities, half of our service in Hollywood is still without power. Over 32,000 homes and customers, as of this morning's report, are still without power in the city of Hollywood. I think this is happening as well, we know, throughout the state of Florida. So I'm calling all of my fellow mayors. We're alerting through the Florida League of Cities and through different associations to make a widespread effort for neighbors and residents and governments across the state to conduct a welfare check on elderly residents that you might know, either in your neighborhood that don't have power, or at local assisted living facilities or condominiums where you know there's a large concentration of elderly people. They might need water sooner than a younger person would. And so I'd really like, again, to implore upon everyone in Florida to check up on your neighbors, elderly, and do what you can to make sure everybody's okay. Thank you. Josh Levy, Mayor of Hollywood. No.
We'll now open it up to questions, and if you could, one at a time, please. The gentleman in the gray shirt.
I tell you, when we responded there this morning, we became aware of the conditions of some of the patients and immediately took action. Our investigation has revealed that it's extremely hot on the second floor of the facility.
¿Podría decirnos desde cuándo no tienen electricidad?
Were most of the victims on the second floor of this facility?
Okay, over here. Say that again. What was your question?
Were the victims on the second floor of this facility?
I'm not going to be commenting on parts of the investigation right now.
The question was, why was it not evacuated?
Wait, one at a time.
Red, please. Can you clarify the generator issue? How long there was a generator before it gave out?
Yes, I'm not going to be commenting because that's part of the criminal investigation as to how cool it actually was, whether there was cooling anything, or how many, if any, were involved in that.
Yeah, here, Chief, how did this happen? Why weren't the patients transferred?
Well, you know, it's a sad state of affairs. You know, we all have elderly people in facilities, and we know that we depend on those people in those facilities to care for our most vulnerable elderly population, and it's really sad when something like this goes on.
Do we know why they were transferred?
Sure, clear.
Exactly what time did you get the call? What was the nature of the call? What was the response to the call?
Right.
Exactly what time?
Yes. We responded out here early this morning.
What time? You know the time?
Yes, around 6 in the morning. And that decision was made once fire rescue started finding other patients in critical need.
Nature of the call. What was the nature of the call?
There was, that one was a heart attack.
Chief, we have a question in Spanish.
Son varias preguntas, Chief.
Sí.
¿Desde cuándo no hay electricidad? Si nos podría comentar sobre el generador, que se supone que había un generador funcionando. Y cuando ustedes llegaron, ¿cuántas personas, empleados del lugar, estaban trabajando, estaban en el lugar?
Esa información yo no la voy a discutir ahora porque eso es parte de la investigación criminal. Los datos, eso.
¿Por qué estando tan cerca del hospital y teniendo acceso al hospital, no decidieron sacarlos antes?
Al momento que nosotros nos enteramos de lo que estaba pasando con los pacientes y las condiciones, evacuamos a todos los 115 pacientes.
¿Qué sucedió con el generador? ¿Qué sucedió con el generador?
We have a question right here. We have a question right here.
Dr. Katz, you entered the facility this morning?
I arrived on scene at around 7:15 a.m. Fire rescue crews were already on scene from at least a half an hour prior to that.
How many
Chief,
staff were in the building?
There were others that were in critical condition. How many are in critical right now, and what did you find when you went in there? What were the conditions?
I can't confirm numbers as far as criticality, but we do have at least a dozen other patients in our emergency department right now that we're actively treating.
Right over here. One more question over here. I'm sorry.
Potentially.
Doctor, you said there were issues identified quickly inside the building that led to your recommendation and the evacuation. What were those issues?
So fire rescue crews began receiving calls early this morning and eventually identified patients that needed help. In addition to the patients they were called about, at that point early this morning, we activated police, additional fire rescue crews, and an MCI, which is a mass casualty incident, to mobilize resources to help care for these patients. Our hospital is located adjacent to this facility. We were in close proximity, so we responded with over 50 healthcare providers from our hospital to this facility to evacuate all of these patients and get them the help that they needed.
Okay, we have a question here.
No, eso no está correcto. Eso no está correcto. Tenemos 6 muertos a este punto y otros en condiciones graves. 215 personas lo hemos mandado para hospitales que han podido con la capacidad esa. Y el Hospital Memorial tiene un lugar para la familia atrás de mí, donde los familiares pueden ir a coger información de dónde están los familiares de ellos. I want to just reiterate. There was a question over, the quantity of people and to confirm that we have 6 dead, 115 evacuees from that facility, and Memorial Hospital has done a great job as a partner with us, taking control of and assisting these patients in finding South Florida hospitals and hospitals in the near vicinity to take up those patients. Right now we have a family resource center set up half a block behind me that is in the process of telling people where they can find their loved ones. We're also in the process of notifying next of kin for all the victims, and we are proactively conducting inspections of all our assisted living facilities in the city, which account for 42 of them. Those inspections will be concluded by 1 p.m. today.
Okay, we have a question right here. He's been waiting.
Doctor, if you could please just describe what you saw when you went in there and how you feel about the fact that something like this could have happened across the street from your yard.
Yeah, so this was a terrible incident. The scene was chaotic when I arrived. We had at least 115 patients that we were trying to evacuate and bring them to safety. The fact that it's down the street, we don't have control over it.
Anyway, guys, a really sad story there out of Hollywood, Florida. 5 people are dead in this nursing home after Irma went through it. And actually, speaking of weather, Gary McGrady.
Hey, what's going on?
What's up? Oh, let's get your mic.
Are we on?
Yeah, we're on. But in total contrast to that, Gary did this awesome story yesterday that is so uplifting and so happy. I'm gonna play it out really quick, and then we're gonna chat about it a little bit, and then talk some weather, right, Gary?
Let's do it.
Okay.
We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Yay! All right, check it out, guys.
And I know you had Luke down there earlier. He's quite a special kid there.
Oh my gosh, he's so cute. He's so cute. And I'm going to show mostly Luke here because there's no sense in looking at me. Trust me, there's no sense in looking at me here. He's going to be an instant star, an instant celebrity, as they say. Listen, let me show you. There are a lot of folks here. These are Luke's parents, Michael and Tessa. And I want to tell their story here in just a second. But first of all, a big part of this, what happened today is we had an army of people out here. This is Ashley Martin, and you represent all the guys that came out today and put this play set together. What are you doing? What's going on?
Well, so it was Rock Solid Foundation that came out here and built a play area for Luke today. It's Rock Solid Foundation. Basically, what we do is provide hope for kids and families facing pediatric cancer.
And we have video of the guys building it together. A great little play set here. They brought the play set out, the slide, a great car too, and we'll show all that. But you can see, and they did a lot of work. I mean, it was a team. How many guys were out here?
We have 12 guys that were out here working today. There are Rock the Ride cyclists. This is our annual campaign to bring attention to Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. So we have 12 cyclists that are going to be doing a 3-day, 270-mile.
Don't sell them
trip.
short, Ashley.
No, I can't. Trip from D.C. to Richmond and then into Norfolk. They're raising money for Rock Solid's mission, and also they're doing it as part of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month to just bring attention.
To help the kids. It's all about the kids. And I'll say this, they're not here because they had to get back to D.C. They're preparing. They're leaving early tomorrow. Where they're going to hey, Luke, what's going on? Right on cue here. This is little Luke, 3 years old, and this is Luke's mom, and this is Luke's dad. This is Tessa, Roman, and this is Dad Michael too. Tell us a little bit about Luke. I mean, obviously he's a child with cancer. Tell
Yes.
us what's going. Oh my gosh, he's so adorable.
Thank you. Luke is 3. He just turned 3 at the end of June. He was diagnosed with Wilms tumor, which is a kidney cancer. And so he was diagnosed mid-June. So he's in the middle of treatment process right now. But mostly, he's just a 3-year-old. Like he's, you know, as you see, he just likes to play and have fun. And,
we should say too that they got this, and he's going to have surgery on Wednesday,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
Back up to DC on
Yes.
Wednesday. But look at him enjoy this.
Yep.
So far. And I think we have video too of when he came in today. This was all a surprise for Luke. Luke didn't know. All these guys showed up in his backyard today. You guys were whisked off in a limousine today, and they came back here, and this is what they did. And look, when we come back out live here, that's Luke's hiding, I think, but here's Abigail is right here. Abigail's his good buddy. Luke, hey Luke, come here. Let's get down here. How do you like your new playset?
Good.
Good. Tell me something. Are you going to stay out here all night tonight? You're not going to want to go to sleep, are you?
Yeah.
Oh. Did you make, what are you making? He's back there. It's like his own personal kitchen back here. He's been making things and bringing everybody out their dish. What'd you make, Luke?
I can make it.
What is it?
Some seaweed and some
Cereal?
Some noodles.
Oh my gosh, he's so adorable. Hey, listen, I want to wish all of you guys luck.
Thank you.
With Luke's treatment, his prognosis and everything happens. I know it's a long road. I know it's a big thing, but how adorable is this little guy? And look, parents, he's 3. He's been absolutely perfect. He has yet to have a nap today, right?
Yes. That's right.
Nap today.
How do you do that? So this is his playset too. He got a brand new Range Rover.
He did.
What 3-year-old's got a brand new Range Rover?
I know, I'm jealous.
And he's learning to ride it too. That's
Yeah,
great.
he is.
Listen, we're out of time. I want to say again, thanks for having us out.
Thank you.
Ashley, what your organization is doing is amazing.
Thank you.
So I really have, I mean, look at that. He sells the whole thing. I did not have to do any work today. Lou, superstar. Jim Marino, what do you think?
The camera
What do you
loves
think?
him.
I think if you don't bring that bucket of mulch back here, Luke's going to be disappointed.
I'm so glad I got to meet this little guy.
Absolutely.
I am
wish him the
so
best of
glad I
luck
got
on
to meet this
Wednesday.
little guy.
Anyway, super cute story from last night. I'm so glad I got to see that because I actually hadn't seen that piece. So
That was weird
that
for me. I
was
never
amazing.
watch. I never
Yeah.
watch my stuff.
I was gonna say, do you ever watch stuff back?
Nope. Very rarely.
Isn't it funny seeing them all like buttoned up now here and all hanging in your
Buttoned
polo?
up. This was what you'd call buttoned
See?
up.
Guys, you changed just for this. What was that really cool to interview them? How cool was
Yeah,
that?
I mean it's always kind of this touchy thing, right? Because that little boy is incredibly sick, and they only got the diagnosis in midsummer, and so they're kind of learning to deal with that. And so I talked to his parents and I said, you know, am I going to step on any toes if I mention? And they were like, we will talk about anything. And I think I purposely just wanted to keep it a little uplifting. It was a fun day
And you
for him.
did, yeah.
I'll say this too, that they were planning, the guys from Rock Solid Foundation, who've been doing this. I don't know that she mentioned in the story, but the creator of Rock Solid Foundation, he had childhood cancer as well. So it's near and dear to his heart. But anyway, they were planning on building a much more extensive play set for Luke, but the
That one
homeowners
looks nice.
restrictions wouldn't allow them to do it.
Wow.
So, you know, he ended up with his little house and he ended up with the car, which
The
they bought
car.
at the last minute at Walmart yesterday.
Wait, that's really cool, the Range Rover.
And so he didn't care. He was
Yeah.
so happy and having so much fun. And he was incorporating his old favorite toys into it all
Oh.
and playing with that too. Just a kid having fun.
How cool was that? And he knew sort of how to interact with you and use the mic, and it was
We
like he
did
was there.
another story for the 8 o'clock news last night,
Yeah.
and he really warmed up to us. And
Oh.
he was
Oh, I
I was
should've grabbed
holding
that.
him. He was talking to us.
Oh, cool. I
And,
would have gotten that together if I'd known that
no,
was on
that's
there.
okay.
But yeah,
but
go to intro.
what a great kid. And as strong parents, his dad is literally a rocket scientist. His dad
Oh,
is.
my goodness.
I was giving him a hard time about that. A nuclear
That's cool.
physicist really is what he is. And then his mom is a nurse. So they have some understanding. And I didn't introduce Luke's little sister, Ashley. She's 6 months old. She was
Oh.
kind of in the background
Yeah,
there.
hanging.
And I never mentioned.
And the cool thing, the connection of all this or whatever, is that there's a bike ride, right, from DC to Richmond?
They
Or-
to Norfolk.
To Norfolk.
So they left this morning, headed to Norfolk, and they're going to stop at some children's hospitals along the way. Really what it is September is Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month. So that's kind of why they did this, and they've been doing it, I'm pretty sure for 8 years. They've been doing this ride, and it's gotten a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, and they bring in some sponsors to help, and they do, I think they work with several children and bringing them things like this, and they build little play areas and play sets for them.
Yeah.
It's just a little thing.
I like that you made it
a little
uplifting.
thing, but a big thing.
Yeah, because those stories can be so hard and sad, and you made it really nice and uplifting. So we're gonna try to do that more for you guys, like bring some cool stories from last night's newscast, where Gary kind of works sometimes, and then he's in studio with us sometimes too. Mostly sometimes to talk about weather, because you are kind of both, jack of all trades.
Yep.
I don't have any shots up right now, but do we have any sort of thoughts on as Irma moves through?
You can grab either.
Yeah. I was looking.
Irma's basically over. It's raining itself out.
Okay.
We're getting a little bit of the backside of it now with the clouds and the rain, which amounts to nothing out there. I think, and then Jose's still out there. And
I was going to ask.
Pardon me. I think I didn't look when I came in. I think Jose is still a 75-mile-per-hour hurricane. Very minimal hurricane.
Okay, smaller.
Still waiting to do the loop. And it's not that it's not going to affect the coast. I just don't think we can say yet. I think if I were to say, no, it's going off to sea, I think that would still be a little bit premature.
Okay.
I hope it does, but I think eventually we'll probably know more going into tomorrow and maybe by Friday and Saturday. What happens is kind of remember we talked about it's doing a loop-to-loop out there. And until it comes out of the loop, the models can't really figure it out. And then there was some talk that it might try to do a second loop. It gets caught up out there and there's nothing to push it along.
Could those loops sort of exacerbate it, make it more strong?
No, it wouldn't make it worse. It would weaken it.
Okay.
Because what it is, it brings up cooler water, and the cooler water tends to weaken the storm. So literally, it could sit out there and just weaken and become nothing.
Yeah. What's interesting too now that really the news with Hurricane Irma are like the relief efforts that are going down there. We're seeing crews of people from Sterling, Virginia, places around here that are bringing down these truckloads of stuff and helping out the people in everywhere, really.
Have you shown some aerial shots of the Keys? Have
no,
you seen any of that?
Not lately. Maybe in the thick of it we kind of were, but they're sort of all rebuilding and stuff right now, right? Mostly the Caribbean.
They just got to get down. That's the Caribbean, but the
people got to get back.
Where the Keys are, where they made landfall Saturday morning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just Sunday morning. It's just devastated.
Yeah.
It's what we thought. I mean, it's a Category 4 or 5 hurricane, and you've got storm surge and wind at the same time, and so. It's pretty beat up down there.
It turned into 4 when it made landfall?
No, it was a 4 going across.
Okay.
It came across and then it weakened a little bit from Cuba. It tried to strengthen a little bit, but it never was able to get back up to a Cat 5, thank goodness.
Yeah.
And then went across the Keys as a really significant Category 4.
I was seeing articles about the Virgin Islands and other Caribbean islands, right?
Yeah, devastated.
And sort of, not that they were forgotten, but I think some headlines use that like, hey, this is really the stuff that got the brunt of it, and we're really dealing with some devastation. Obviously, Florida as well, big time.
Barbuda was parts of around Aguila and St. Martin and places like that. I mean, they're complete devastation. St. Thomas got beat up. St. John's got beat up.
St. John.
And it was a stronger hurricane then. It was a Category 5 when it hit there.
Yeah.
So you're talking just literally one big tornado.
Yeah.
And that's what it ended up being.
And those guys, will they just be able to rebuild? I mean, they've been through stuff like this, but not as bad. Yeah.
They'll just have to.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
You wonder about some of those beach location and the beach businesses and stuff that are just these small town business people on the beach, literally, in St. John. Like, will they ever recover? Will they be okay?
Tourism is so important to them. So the tour boats, the cruise boats can't go, right? And then tourism gets nixed. Done, and so they have to wait and rebuild the best they can.
My goodness.
And see what happens over the next couple of years. And they also got a quick pass of Jose. Jose went straight across those islands. Not straight. It stayed north. Thank goodness. I mean, if the whole place has been wiped out, what's the next hurricane up going to do? So it's not like they were able to rebuild something, and then the next hurricane came along and took that out too. So, but Jose stayed a little bit north.
I love talking to Gary too because he always has some really cool stuff up his sleeve. Like today, your story has to do with skydiving, right?
You already knew that?
I just heard this little rumor through the grapevine, whatever, in the newsroom.
I wake up and show up here. I never know it. Really don't know it.
But secretly in the editorial meeting, we're all like talking about what he's going to get. And so tell us a little bit about that. Do you know much?
Well, I don't know much, and that's kind of what I do when I go. I don't know a lot. I learn when I'm there.
Okay.
But it's science, technology, energy, engineering, and math. It's STEM.
Mhm.
It's iFly, which is the indoor skydiving place in, I think it's in Herndon or Sterling, Virginia.
Okay.
I'm not sure which one it is. But they're doing a program for the kids there, and that's basically all I know. So I'm going since it's science, technology, engineering, math, obviously. I'm not an engineer, but I'm into all that other stuff. My dad's the engineer in the family.
Mine is too.
But it'll be interesting. So I'll just show up and and I'm not going there just to do indoor skydiving, but they have told
That's
me
part of the
that I will do it. And it's
how does that even work? Well, you'll
it's
see.
a big vacuum cleaner is what it is. So it
Oh.
sucks. It's like
It makes you feel like you are in that
you're
mode.
floating. It's
Got
it's
it.
a big vacuum cleaner. So
Inside.
it sucks. And it sucks in all the air and it comes it up and they turn it up faster and it's not blowing you, it's actually sucking
you
and so you just
up?
get in the tube and then
Okay.
and you lay down and it simulates
Oh, that's
actually
cool.
falling.
That's gonna be a really cool
I've
live
never
shot.
done it.
We're
I've
gonna try
never
to
done
clip
it.
that for tomorrow,
My
maybe if it's
kids-
cool.
I won't be here, but you can
Oh
still
yeah,
show
yeah, we'll show
I'm
it.
off.
Your
But,
kids have done it?
My kids have done it, but I've never done it.
It's a recreational thing that
yeah,
kids
absolutely,
just do.
absolutely.
Indoors.
I fly indoor
Yeah.
skydiving. It's a huge company now, and they have locations all over the country. So my kids did it in Orlando several
Oh.
years ago, but I didn't do it. I was like, yeah, you'll have fun.
Yeah, and now
But today
hopefully
I
you do
guess
too.
I'll have to do it.
Oh, that'll be cool.
Yeah, it'll
Live.
be fun.
Awesome.
So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about how they are putting the program together so that kids can learn. Not only it's a fun way to learn. It's it's a fun way to learn about physics, and it's a fun way
Totally.
to learn about all the other things they're going to be
Yeah.
teaching there.
I would learn a lot from that in the vacuum stuff. I mean, basic science stuff, but like you can never get enough of that reiteration.
Yeah,
I think.
I mean application is
Yeah.
everything.
Right. All right. Anything else to report for weather?
I don't
We got a
think
beautiful
so.
day.
I think
beautiful
the
week.
weekend looks good. We're going to clear off this remnants of Irma.
Yeah, it's
And
only rainy.
it trends better for the weekend, and of course then we're settling into fall. So hopefully that we'll continue with this kind of fall weather. But let's see, the weekend.
was.
If I think about it, I think we're low 80s, upper 70s, low 80s for the weekend. It looks pretty good.
So nice. So excited. So nice weather for that march that we're going to be covering. So tune in here, YouTube and Facebook. We're going to cover those big marches on the National Mall. So we have some special digital coverage for you guys. I'll be here on a Saturday rocking it out. So,
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Working
special.
extra. Okay.
We're
Bye,
excited.
guys. Thanks
okay.
for watching.
Yeah, thanks, Kara. Transition.
Debate in public the merits of continued conflict against ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and the Taliban in places like Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria, where the brave men and women who serve us and keep us safe are currently engaged service to our nation and our security. I am very sympathetic to my colleagues' concerns about the potential consequences of repealing the 01 and 02 authorizations. I don't want our troops fighting overseas to see our debate over this amendment as a lack of support for their vital mission. And I don't want to see our enemies emboldened. I, however, chose to support the Paul Amendment, but my commitment to our troops and my commitment to defeating our enemies is as strong as ever. This body can and must immediately get to work to craft a legal authorization relevant to our current conflicts. That's why I supported the Paul Amendment, which would have provided a 6-month window to allow Congress to demonstrate oversight, vigorous review of the status of our military operations around the world, and to pass a new authorization relevant to our current national security threats. In other words, Mr. President, it would have required Congress to do its job. Although the Paul Amendment was tabled, I look forward to continuing to discuss this important and pressing issue with my colleagues on the Foreign Relations Committee, where it should more appropriately be debated, and to bring it forward for a final vote in this chamber. If we are to do our job under the Constitution of the United States, we owe those who fight and serve and strive to keep us safe nothing less than clarity about Congress's willingness to do its job under the Constitution and our willingness to consent to the actions that are essential to keeping us safe. Now, Mr. President, debating and passing a new AUMF is not the only policy area in which Congress needs to get to work. Because of the difficult decision by the Trump administration to end the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, or DACA program, Congress has just 6 months to pass a legislative fix for the nearly 800,000 dreamers in the United States today. Let me start by thanking many other colleagues who've already come to the floor to give a voice to our nation's dreamers. I am proud to stand with them and speak to this important issue today. Since 2012, the DACA policy has helped more than 750,000 dreamers work, study, and contribute to our society free of the fear of being forced to leave the only home they have ever known. Many of these young men and women are our classmates, co-workers, colleagues, folks who are just as American as any one of us, because that is what it means to be an American, whether you have been here a month, a year, a decade, or 7 generations. Those who are willing to serve, to contribute, to engage in our society, to pay taxes, to play by the rules, we welcome as Americans. These are people who were brought to our country as children, without authorization, but through no fault of their own. And in my view, they deserve the opportunity to demonstrate that they want to contribute to our community and our country, and to come forward and live their lives out of the shadows and as proud Americans. DACA provided these dreamers with that security, but the President's announcement to end the program has left them in a state of uncertainty and fear. I am eager and willing to work with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to pass comprehensive immigration reform, but targeting this group of overwhelmingly hardworking and tax-paying dreamers is not the way to fix our broken immigration system. In my view, it is in some ways a capitulation to the harshest, most nativist, anti-immigrant forces in our country. Mr. President, I believe Americans are strengthened by welcoming immigrants and refugees into our country. I believe this as someone who understands that immigration has strengthened our economy. I believe this because I know America was founded largely as a nation of immigrants and thrives because of its diversity, not in spite of it. I believe this as well because of my faith, which calls on all of us to welcome the stranger and the foreigner. But these dreamers, frankly, aren't strangers at all. They are already our neighbors whose lives and freedom are now in jeopardy. We're talking about young men and women serving in our military, graduating near the top of their classes, working as doctors, teachers, engineers, and first responders. When we talk about dreamers, I think it's important to talk
the resolve, I think, of this Congress, Democrats and Republicans, to come together like we did last week to respond initially to what happened in Texas with Harvey, to do likewise for our co-citizens in Florida as well. And I'm sure some of the other colleagues will have some of the comments on that. It's going to be a long recovery, and a great deal of resources will be expended, but they ought to be expended to help bring back the economy of Florida and the Caribbean, and more importantly, to restore people to their normal lives. But I've long said Americans want to know what we Democrats, what we stand for, and how we're going to create good-paying jobs that help the hardest working men and women secure their place in the middle class. We all know our agenda can't just be against Donald Trump, as alluring as that may be. We need a vision backed by policy, so all Americans know what Democrats stand for and what we're fighting for, and how it will help them in their bottom line. And that's why I'm so proud this morning to announce the creation of the Jobs for America Task Force, a united effort from House Democrats to create a specific set of legislation and policies on jobs and the economy. Guided by the Better Deal agenda, our members will create a jobs package that Democrats can advocate for in this Congress and beyond. Led by some of the hardest working members in our caucus, this will put, as I say, meat on the bones for Democrats. It will show how our vision is America's vision, that we stand behind working families in America. And with that, I want to turn to the Vice Chair of the Democratic Caucus, Linda Sanchez.
I want to echo, thank you. I want to echo Joe's sentiments with respect to those who've been affected by the hurricanes, and Democrats stand united in trying to provide the relief and the resources needed to help people put their lives back together. Today, I'm proud to stand with Chairman Crowley and our task force co-chairs to launch the Jobs for America task forces. House Democrats are focused on helping America's working families through bold efforts to create jobs, grow paychecks, and to strengthen our economy. Our priority is to support hardworking men and women who make up the backbone of our country. And the Jobs for America task forces will keep working to move forward an agenda that will give more families more financial security. These task forces will help develop a jobs-focused legislative package as part of our Better Deal agenda. They'll help us live up to our promise to deliver better wages, better jobs, and a better future for the American people. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce one of the chairs of the DPCC, Mr. David Cicilline.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Vice Chair Sanchez. I want to begin by thanking our chairman, Chairman Crowley and Vice Chair Sanchez, and the leaders of the 5 new task forces. In particular, I want to thank Chairman Crowley and Vice Chair Sanchez for recognizing the urgency of focusing on improving the economic lives of working Americans. There is nothing more important to us as Democrats than creating good paying jobs and raising incomes for folks who are already working. It has always been the case in this country that we believe the next generation of Americans will have a better life than the current one. But today, for the first time in our history, working men and women don't believe that their children will have a better life than themselves. They're worried. They're worried about making ends meet. They're worried about the opportunities their kids will have. They're worried about saving for a secure retirement. And as corporate special interests spend millions to influence political campaigns, working people are convinced that Washington doesn't work for them. And that's why Democrats have outlined a new, bold economic agenda, a better deal, better jobs, better wages for a better future. This is our plan to create good-paying jobs, raise incomes, lower costs in people's lives, and provide working people with tools that they need to get ahead in the 21st century. We've already announced some of the ways that Democrats will do this when we take the House back, creating 10 million new full-time, good-paying jobs, doubling support for apprenticeship programs, invest in rebuilding our bridges, roads, and public transit, break up corporate monopolies that destroy jobs and raise costs on consumers, and lower the cost of prescription drugs, and demanding transparency from pharmaceutical companies. And I'm very grateful that the 5 task forces that the chairman is announcing today are going to help develop specific proposals to make this economic agenda a reality. We have a lot of talent in our caucus. I think the chairman is right. These are some of the best and smartest people in the Democratic caucus. I know that they're going to do great work, and with their help, we will move forward in helping to create an economy that works for everyone, not just the wealthy few, an economy where hard work is valued and honored with a good wage, and where working people are treated with dignity and respect, the dignity and respect they deserve. And all Americans will finally get a better deal. And with that, I have the pleasure of introducing the distinguished gentlelady from Washington, an important member of the Ways and Means Committee in the House, Ms. Del Bene.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm honored to join my colleagues, Debbie Dingell of Michigan, Raja Krishnamurthy of Illinois, and Darren Soto of Florida in leading the New Economy Task Force. We've seen many changes in the way the world works, from e-commerce to advanced manufacturing, and these changes have created great opportunities and painful disruptions. And our policies have not kept pace with these changes. Our collective goal is to make sure workers have the tools they need to take advantage of the opportunities and to overcome the disruptions. We need a national commitment to ensure not a single American is left behind as we forge new paths ahead. Innovations are happening across the country. In my district, we have industries ranging from aerospace, manufacturing, and technology to agriculture, clean energy, and healthcare, all of which are driving the economy forward. But there are still geographic disparities and skill gaps that must be addressed to give every worker an opportunity to achieve the American dream. To ensure workers gain the skills they need to succeed in these new and changing jobs, we need strong programs and STEM education, or as I like to say, STEAM education, because the arts and creative thinking are just as important as we build innovative and lifelong learners. By creating opportunities for long-term job growth in America, we can make every community, family, and business in the nation stronger and more resilient. Thank you, and now I'd like to introduce my colleague from California, Congresswoman Julia Brownley.
Thank you, Susie. Good morning, and I too want to thank the chairman and vice chairwoman for putting these important task force together. I'm proud to co-chair the Reinvesting in Our Returning Heroes Task Force with my colleagues Brad Schneider, Donald McEachin, and Ruben Gallego. I represent Ventura County, the proud home of Naval Base Ventura County and almost 50,000 veterans. I see firsthand every day the sacrifices our men and women in uniform make to keep us safe. I also know that their family members sacrifice equally as much for our country. When our soldiers return home, they face enormous challenges. They struggle to find adequate health care. They struggle to integrate back into their communities. They struggle to find housing, a good school for their children, and often to simply adjust to a very different rhythm in their day-to-day lives. And unfortunately, many of them struggle to find a job, any job, much less a good paying job in a field they love that will lead to a successful and long career. Before our young men and women join the military, we tell them that they will learn the skills they'll need to be successful in the 21st century economy. And employers in my district tell me they want to hire more veterans, and yet they still struggle. The struggles vary from physical injuries suffered in combat to mental health issues, or in many cases, simply because the training they received in the military doesn't line up with local, state, and federal requirements. A good example is my constituent Tina, who served with distinction in the Navy. She was trained as a medical specialist. She excelled at it, and when she finished her service, she wanted to use those skills to help others by becoming a vocational nurse. That is nothing less than a win-win for Tina and for our nation. But when she completed her service, she learned that she would have to spend a considerable amount of time training all over again before she could be licensed as a nurse. Having already served and having already been trained, she just couldn't invest even more time to go through a process that would teach her what she what she already knew, simply because her training wasn't recognized. That's what this task force is about, finding issues like these and crafting legislation to address them. Our nation makes a promise to our men and women in uniform that the skills they learn while serving will position them for good-paying jobs when they return to civilian life. This task force is going to work on legislation to make good on that promise, a better deal, better jobs, better pay, better future for all Americans. And it's my great, distinct honor to introduce friend and colleague Mark Pocan.
Thank you, Julia, and thanks to Joe and Linda for putting this together and all my other colleagues for being here. When you hear us talk about better jobs, better wages, and a better future, let me try to put it another way, coming from the America's Heartland, from Wisconsin. It's really what people talk about at their kitchen tables. Can they afford their mortgage or rent? Can they have health care for their family? Can they take a family vacation? Can they send their kids to college if they want to go? That's what people actually talk about. Just contrast that with what we're doing right now in Congress. We've spent the first 8 months trying to take away health care from 20 million people. We want to now cut taxes for the wealthiest in this country, and some people are willing to shut down government over a wall. Well, I can tell you in Paul Ryan's district, which is a neighboring district to mine, if the wall means you're keeping employers in, they might support that. But 25,000 people used to make cars in the 1st Congressional District in Paul Ryan's district. No one does today. So the subcommittee that I'm on, along with Ami Bera, Mark Veazey, and Lisa Blunt-Rochester, is to talk specifically about access to jobs, what we can do to help do that. That covers everything from higher education, apprenticeships, access to capital, entrepreneurship. Those are the goals that we have with this committee, and we are up to the task and looking forward to make sure that our caucus continues to focus on what's most important to people across the country, and that's talking about jobs and wages, something the Republicans simply aren't doing. And it is my honor to introduce, I believe the word is spectacular I'm supposed to use, Representative from Pennsylvania, Brendan Boyle.
I swear I did not tell him to say that, although that might not be totally accurate. I want to thank Joe and Linda for their leadership that they've exercised in creating these task force. I'm the chairman of the Jobs with Dignity Task Force. And yes, this is about jobs, but it's also about something deeper than that. Really strikes at the heart of the American dream. The idea that no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, that if you work hard and play by the rules, you'll be able to provide for yourself and your family, and your kids will be even better off and have more opportunities than you had. There are sadly millions of Americans today who believe that that no longer exists. The lack of job opportunity and the lack of jobs that pay well and jobs with dignity is directly related to why there's such a lack of faith today in the American dream. So our task force is going to look specifically at 3 ways that we can address this. Number 1, to raise wages. Yes, we need to increase the minimum wage. Our caucus is entirely united behind that. It is at its lowest level in more than a half century. But our economic message cannot just be about raising the minimum wage. We will be looking at strategies that affect the workforce, the majority of workers who currently make more than the minimum wage, but not enough to provide for their families or even begin to think about saving for college. Number 2, incentivize those workers who have left the workforce. While we got a good census data yesterday, it is clear there are more people outside the workforce today than at any point in American history. We want to come up with some strategies to address that and have them return to the labor force. And third and finally, restore retirement security. A pillar of the 20th century in building a middle class was Social Security and jobs that had defined pensions. The idea that you could retire with dignity. Today, we have seen those pensions largely disappear from the private sector and are increasingly under threat in the public sector. We want to talk about ways and strategies that we can restore retirement security and really give all workers that peace of mind that they will not retire in poverty. Now with that, it is, as he was telling me, my honor and privilege to introduce one of the veterans we have serving, a fellow classmate and someone who is an example living the American dream, Ruben Gallego.
Good morning. I'm here to talk about returning heroes, so I guess I will do that. But I think it's something that's been really struck upon is the idea of employment for veterans, and we are doing much better. When I first got back from the war and I went to try to get a managerial job at a bank that shall remain nameless, the first thing they told me is you don't have any leadership experience. This after literally doing 7 months of patrols through Iraq, with 5 men under the age of 19. And I was told that I couldn't even man the clerical desk at a bank. To today, where we have some great partnerships that's actually occurring with some of this same bank, for example, where we actually have the unemployment numbers of veterans dropping, while at the same time, many veterans starting business. But we have to continue a lot of that work that was built upon during Barack Obama's presidency. Last year, we saw some attempts, for example, to roll back the veterans hiring policy, snuck in through the NDAA by Republicans in the Senate. It was Democrats that actually led the resistance against that and were able to turn that around. We're seeing some of those attempts again. We have to look and stop any attempts to basically use the GI Bill as a pay-for other defense priorities, as well as tax cuts. The GI Bill is extremely important. It actually, in my opinion, saved millions of veterans from potentially finding themselves in some very dire situations. It gives you housing, it gives you basic standard of living. But many a times, whenever the Department of Defense needs to find money, they're always trying to look at the GI Bill in trying to steal some of the money from there when it comes to living, the housing allowance that you see there, as well as in general trying to make veterans pay into the GI Bill, which is something that was not agreed to by many of us when we joined. So the first step for hiring heroes is to stop all the attempts by the Republicans to use veterans essentially and a lot of our benefits as a way to pay for the tax cuts for the wealthy. So that's step one. The step two is obviously to take positive steps to increase both veteran participation in the workforce as well as in starting their own businesses. So for example, some of the ideas that we're kicking around working on is allowing veterans to tap the GI Bill to start small businesses. There's a lot of veterans that do not want to go back to school. They want to start their own business, but startup capital is very difficult. So many of us have been working ideas, both trying to conjoin the GI Bill with the Small Business Administration so that way they can use that type of money, the money to basically start their business that they would have instead of going to college. Some of them don't want to go to four-year college, and some of them don't want to just get an apprenticeship. Some of them just want to go to coding school, for example, learn how to computer code. So we're helping a lot of these veterans be able to use access to GI Bill to go to some of these coding schools, which helps them get employment in a faster and quicker manner. So as well as continued partnership and encouragement for our for-profit sectors, our corporations, in terms of their veterans employment. So we are continuing our tradition as Democrats as being the party of veterans, the party that takes care of veterans and makes sure that they have the same amount of dignity and respect while they serve that they're going to have when they're out. And we're going to continue doing that. With that, oh, what's that? Oh, okay. And we're going to go to questions.
Yeah, before we go to questions, I want to thank both Dr. Raul Ruiz, who's also a co-chair of one of our task forces, as well as Lisa Blunt Rochester, who's joined us as well. I want to thank them for their enthusiasm. And they're here to answer questions as well as the other members of our task force on the creation of the task force. Are there any questions out there on the task force? First, pull it down. Any? Yes.
In terms of the timetable moving forward, when can we expect to see the concrete bills on this, and will these be pieces of legislation that will be ready to go to the floor under a different Congress? Will they be more?
That's a great question. Thank you. We want our these hardworking, thoughtful members to put their nose to the grindstone and to work expeditiously. But our expectation is between now and the end of the year to have product ready to be brought before the caucus to have further discussion. We're looking for the entire caucus's participation. These 20 or so members are leading the charge in terms of the effort of the task force itself. But this is a caucus-driven. This will be a caucus-driven product. And I think there's going to be a stark comparison between the first 100 days of the Trump and Republican-controlled Congress and the first 200 days of the Trump Republican-controlled Congress. and the third 100 days of the Trump Republican-controlled Congress in terms of what was promised and what was accomplished, and what Democrats will do within the first 100 days, 200 days, et cetera. I think that's going to be a very stark comparison, and one that we look forward to drawing attention to. Anyone else have any comment?
I just look forward to working with you so closely. Bonne chance, mes amis. 2 short years ago, who among us would have imagined this scenario here today? Very few, if any. I know we certainly didn't. But from the outset of this bid, we held fast to the notion that LA's primary objective was to do what's right for the Olympic movement. To be honest, we did not imagine that would mean changing our bid from 24 to 28. But our willingness to do so and our ability to do so, I hope, is a reflection of our commitment to each and every one of you. I'm also aware that as good as our bid is, we are here today due to the tireless efforts of Larry Probst and Scott Blackmun. On behalf of my city, I want to say to Larry and Scott, job well done. Thank you. You know, much has been written and said in this campaign about the fast-changing nature of the world and the movement's ability to adapt and change with it. Some doubted whether the IOC would have the guts to do this. But the 2024 and 2028 decision should put aside any concerns about the IOC's willingness not only to recognize change, but to embrace it. You see, the mark of greatness isn't just recognizing the need for change. The mark of greatness is acting upon it. The people of Los Angeles, we don't perceive the 2028 Games as 11 years in the future. We know that the Games, with your help, begin today. And as we've said many times, Follow the Sun isn't just a reference to our beautiful weather. Follow the Sun is the embodiment of the spirit, of the culture of our city. Because only by following the sun can you reach tomorrow. And only by reaching tomorrow can you improve upon today. And isn't that the point of sport and of life? To improve, to get better. We know the power of the Olympics in Los Angeles. When you chose us in 1932, many people in this movement couldn't even find Los Angeles on a map. And yet we delivered those games. They were spectacular, and they transformed our city's future. When you came back to us in 1984, we again answered the call with a second spectacular games that literally transformed the Olympic movement's future. Today, in an unsteady time, we know that the Olympics in Los Angeles in 2028 represent continuity with our city and this movement's enduring values. Los Angeles reflects the face of America's future and the heart of American values of inclusiveness, of generosity, and of unity. Bringing the Olympics back home to LA gives us the chance to imagine what our city will look like a decade from now. I won't be the mayor in 2028, but LA will still be my home. Our 5-year-old daughter, Maya, will be 16 years old, and I will watch her and my city grow up with reborn airport, new rail lines, and the Olympics will help spur a bold vision for our city, a city of opportunity no matter what neighborhood you grow up in. You see, the city that I love, Los Angeles, is a city where the games have never been a barrier to making progress. They have always been the accelerating force to our future, to re-envision a city and a world in the days ahead. We can't wait to welcome you back to the City of Angels. And for a 13-year-old boy who watched those Olympics in the Coliseum, you planted a dream that today is coming true. I can't believe I'm here, and we can't wait to welcome you back to LA. So let's take one last look at LA as a candidate city. Thank you.
So many different cultures represented here. So many different ethnicities represented here. LA can be anything you want it to be.
Hold on to me.
they go? Who cares what they see? Who cares what they know? Your first name is free, last name is dumb, but you still believe in where we're from. Man's right flower, it's in every living thing. Mind, use your power, spirit, use your wings. Man's right flower, it's in every living thing. Mind, use your power, spirit, use your wings. When the baby first breathes, when the well hugs the sea. Freedom.
It's an opportunity to learn, no matter where you look.
We are from heat, the electric one. Just a shock you see. He left us the sun. Sun and yes man are made of the same things.
If you think about it, to have the Olympics here and to have so many different cultures represented would be a beautiful story to tell.
Mr. President, with respect for this movement and love in our hearts, this concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Please, dear friends and colleagues, let me on behalf of all of you thank the team from both Paris and Los Angeles for your fantastic work and your outstanding projects and your emotional and very convincing presentations. Congratulations. The strong public support you enjoy, the talented teams we have worked so tirelessly with, the experience of your national Olympic committees, and the passion of your city, regional and national authorities. All these factors have seamlessly come together, capturing the imagination and leading to your truly world-class projects. You were the first cities to fully benefit from the reforms of Olympic Agenda 2020. We are all therefore delighted to see that your plans include a record number of existing and temporary venues and projects fully aligned with the long-term development plans of your respective cities and regions. Merci Paris, thank you Los Angeles, vos comités de candidature, vos gouvernements et vos comités nationaux olympiques pour votre collaboration pour parvenir à ce remarquable accord. Ce dernier ouvre la voie à de nombreuses années de partenariat, alors qu'ensemble nous allons préparer d'excellents Jeux olympiques dans deux villes magnifiques. This is truly a win-win-win situation for all of us. As parties to the tripartite agreement, I will now ask the Mayor of Paris and the Mayor of Los Angeles to join me at the lectern for the vote. Madame Hidalgo for la Ville de Paris, Mayor Garcetti for the City of Los Angeles. In accordance with the unanimous decision we took at the IOC session in July, we will now move forward with the ratification of the tripartite agreement, thereby electing Paris as host city of the Games of the 33rd Olympiad 2024 and Los Angeles as the host city of the Games of the 34th Olympiad 2028. May I ask all IOC members in favor of this historic tri-part agreement, please raise your hand. Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstention? No, thank you very much for this clear vote. Mesdames, Mesdames, Messieurs, Mesdames, Messieurs, j'ai le grand honneur d'annoncer que le Comité international olympique a simultanément élu la ville hôte de jeux de la 33e Olympiade en 2024 et la ville hôte des Jeux de 34e Olympiade en 2028. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the great honor to announce that the International Olympic Committee has simultaneously elected the host city of the Games of the 33rd Olympiad 2024 and the host city of the Games of the 34th Olympiad 2028, Paris 24, Los Angeles 28.
Félicitations Paris 2024. Congratulations Los Angeles 2028. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated because we will now proceed in a few moments with the signature of the host city contracts for both Olympic Games.
So there you go, guys. The two cities ratified for the 2024 and 2028 Olympics are Paris and Los Angeles, respectively. So we just saw that bid, and we were talking to our a senior web producer here. Used to live in LA. He's kind of busy with work right now, but he was saying LA is so prepared for this. They've done it before. They have the infrastructure for this, multiple arenas. They are ready for it. So these two cities sort of threw the dice, and it was a gamble which year they would be, but they picked 2024 and 2028. So that's what you're looking at live. Those bids have been ratified. We're going to stay here as long as we have the feed and then jump down to Miami-Dade County where there's an update on the hurricane.
We can even aim higher.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed with the signature of the host city contracts for both Olympic Games. Please take your seats. The host city contract signatories from both cities and their respective national Olympic committees are kindly requested to take their seats on stage for signing of the host city contracts.
One more.
I will try for the second time to call the host city contract signatories from Paris and the respective National Olympic Committee representatives to kindly take their seats on stage for the signing of the host city contracts. And we begin with the signing of the host city contract of the 33rd Olympiad in 2024. The IOC President Thomas Bach and IOC Executive Board member Sam-Yang Eng will sign the host city contract on behalf of the International Olympic Committee. They are joined by the Mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, signing on behalf of the City of Paris, and the President.
That we can. There is a need for police officers from Miami-Dade and the Upper Keys to help the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. We've already tasked some of our personnel to do that. We also are going to be good neighbors to our neighbors to the south and the rest of Florida. These are all the updates that I have at this time. Thank you very much. May God bless you all. Now I'm ready for some questions. I did not recommend that. That was actually done by somebody else. And by the way, Doug, we're talking about Hurricane Irma right now. Is there some kind of connection to Hurricane Irma? Okay, yeah. No, I'm not. I know that there's a situation, Doug, with this particular company up in Broward County. Okay, but I'm dealing with some other issues, and really Economic Development Fund really is not something I want to discuss right now. Next question. Okay, here we go. Actuación de hoy sobre la FPL hasta las 7 de la mañana todavía habían 444,000 cuentas sin electricidad, 200,000 menos que ayer. Estamos a más de mitad de la reparación, solo 2 días después del paso del huracán, así que estoy muy contento con el esfuerzo de Florida Power & Light en restaurar la energía en el condado de Miami-Dade. Les pido a los residentes que tengan paciencia y llamen a FPL al 1-800-4-OUTAGE, 1-800-4-OUTAGE, si todavía no tienen electricidad. Actualizaciones sobre los servicios del condado, aviación, el del aeropuerto del condado de Miami-Dade está abierto, está trabajando 50% de capacidad porque los vuelos nada más que están 50% de capacidad, más líneas, más aerolíneas están ya recuperándose y también poniendo más y más vuelos todos los días. Esperamos tener el aeropuerto a 100% para el viernes. El puerto está abierto completamente hoy, eso es buena noticia. El 311 está trabajando de 7 a 7 de la noche. Por favor, recuerden que para reportar problemas con la electricidad, llamen al 1-800-4-OUTAGE, 1-800-4-OUTAGE. La mayoría de las llamadas son sobre el transporte. Descarguen la aplicación del Departamento de Transporte de Miami-Dade, MDT Tracker App. Inscríbase para recibir alertas sobre el transporte y ya que otras rutas van a empezar a brindar servicio. El transporte público de Miami-Dade, el Metro Rail vuelve a brindar servicio en un horario normal hoy. El Metro Mover sigue cerrado. Sin embargo, un shuttle de Metrobus está haciendo las rutas del Metro Mover. Casi 50 rutas del Metrobus están brindando servicio hoy, pero debido a las condiciones de las calles, por favor recuerden que puedan haber demoras. Vamos a seguir actualizando nuestra página web, www.miamidade.gov/emergency, con nueva información sobre el transporte. El Departamento de Transporte y Obras Públicas también, en nuestro Departamento de Transporte y Obras Públicas, ha estado trabajando para limpiar las calles de todas las ramas y objetos. En el 75% de las carreteras principales del condado de Miami-Dade ya son transitables. Semáforos casi.
All right, guys, while we are getting those updates in Spanish, we're going to switch out of that and give you a look back into our newsroom now. We're going to send you over. This is a look inside the White House press briefing room, which we show almost daily, but you can catch today's on Facebook. Today, we're going to be posting it there and continue our coverage of all this stuff, live and breaking news on our digital stream and on air, of course, this evening. So that's a little look inside at the crowd gathering for that. And usually those start a little later than expected. So it's slated for 2 o'clock, which is in a couple minutes, but we're banking on it being a little later. You can catch that live on our Facebook page. But as always, follow us on fox5dc.com. We're going to be updating our web stories and keeping you in the know of anything that's going on. So kind of a cool little look, guys, a new concept for our show here right inside the newsroom. You can see right behind me. And we're going to be grabbing all the awesome, people that contribute to our newsroom every day, reporters and anchors and photojournalists who have awesome accounts and stories of what they are covering during the day. And as always, the breaking news comes first, so you'll see it live here. So if you are not a part of our community, you can click the button that says subscribe right below this stream and be part of it. And that means you'll be able to see when we come up every day on YouTube live on your phone. So check us out here, guys, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. We're going to be back, as always, Thursday, tomorrow at 11:30 with live news, and we'll see what we can get from the beginning. Maybe a weather update, some politics, anything, of course, that's breaking. We'll bring it to you here. So a beautiful shot right now. It's gorgeous out in this cloudy shot over the Capitol. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 11:30. Take care.